Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's Crystal Ross. I'm sorry I couldn't come to you earlier, but it is 5:23:20. It is Saturday. The time is 10:28 p.m. and I'm going to briefly go over the lesson. I cannot raise my volume louder because of the time. But we're going to go ahead and get into the lesson today. It's a good one and I don't want you to miss it. It is coming from Exodus chapter 14. Of the NLT version of the Holy Bible. Let's begin. Then the Lord gave these instructions to Moses. Order the Israelites to turn back and camp by Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. Camp there along the shore across from Baal-zephon. Then Pharaoh will think, the Israelites are confused. They're trapped in the wilderness. And once again, I will harden the Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after you. I've planned this in order to display my glory through Pharaoh and his whole army. After this, the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites camped there and as they were told. The Egyptians pursue Israel. When word reached the king of Egypt that the Israelites had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds. Remember that stubbornness? What have we done letting all those Israelite slaves of ours get away? They asked. So the Pharaoh harnessed his chariot and called up his troops. He took with him 600 of Egypt's best chariots, along with the rest of the chariots of Egypt, each with its commander. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, so he chased after the people of Israel, who had left with fists raised in defiance. The Egyptians chased after them with all the forces of Pharaoh's army, all his horses, his chariots, his charioteers, and his troops. The Egyptians caught up with the people of Israel as they were camped beside the shore near Pi-hahiroth, across from Baal-zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up and panicked when they saw the Egyptians overtaking them. They cried out to Moses. They cried out to the Lord, and they said to Moses, "Why did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Weren't there enough graves for us in Egypt? What have you done to us? Why did you make us leave Egypt? Didn't we tell you this would happen while we were still in Egypt? Didn't we tell you? We said, leave us alone. Let us be slaves to the Egyptians. It's better to be a slave in Egypt than to be a corpse here in the wilderness." Did they say that? But Moses told the people, "Don't be afraid. Just stand and watch the Lord rescue you here today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. You will never see these enemies of yours again. The Lord himself will fight for you, so just stay calm. Escape through the Red Sea." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the people to get a move on. Pick up your staff and raise your hand over that sea. Divide the water so the Israelites can walk through the middle of the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they will charge in after the Israelites. My great glory will be displayed through Pharaoh and his troops, his chariots and his charioteers. When my glory is displayed through them, all Egypt will see my glory and know that I am the Lord." Then the angel of the Lord, who had been leading the people of Israel, moved to the near rear of the camp. moved to the rear of the camp of the Israelites. The pillar of cloud also moved from the front and stood behind them. The cloud settled between the Egyptians and the Israelite camps. As darkness fell, the cloud turned into fire, lighting up the night. But the Egyptians and Israelites did not approach each other all that night. Then Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the Lord opened up a path through the water with a strong east wind. The wind blew all that night, turning the seabed into dry land. So the people of Israel walked through the middle of the sea on dry ground, with walls of water on each side. Then the Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and charioteers, chased them into the middle of the sea. But just before the dawn, the Lord looked down on the Egyptian army from a pillar of fire and cloud. And he threw their forces into total confusion. So from that cloud, the Lord began to fight for the Israelites. He twisted their chariot wheels, making the chariots difficult to drive. So Jesus took the wheel. Let's go. Let's get out of here, away from these Israelites. The Egyptians shouted, the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt. When the Israelites had reached the other side, the Lord said to Moses, now raise your hand over that sea again. Then the waters will rush back and cover the Egyptians and their chariots and charioteers. So, as the sun began to rise, Moses raised his hand over the sea, and the water rushed back into its usual place. The Egyptians tried to escape, but the Lord had swept them into the sea. Then the waters returned and covered all the charioteers, the entire army of Pharaoh. Of all the Egyptians who had chased the Israelites into the sea, not one single one survived. But the people of Israel had walked through the middle of that same Red Sea on dry ground, and the water stood up like walls on both sides for them. That is how the Lord rescued Israel from the hand of the Egyptians that day. And the Israelites saw the bodies of the Egyptians washed up upon that seashore. When the people of Israel saw the mighty power that the Lord had unleashed against those Egyptians, they were filled with awe before him. Oh, magnify the Lord, I bless his holy name. They put their faith in the Lord and his servant, his faithful follower, Moses. And that concludes the reading of scripture for this night. The time is now 10:37 p.m. It is Saturday. It's 5/23/2020. Y'all gonna have to cut your volume up on me so that you can hear me loud and clear, because my neighbors it's late. They may be trying to get some rest. So I want to go ahead and get into my commentating and my summarizing portion as the Lord leadeth. Here we have Israelites. They're camping. They're camping out beside the seashore. They took a different route to get here than the route would usually call for, because they didn't want to encounter the Philistines. The Philistines were another army. God didn't want the people to get discouraged and have to fight, and they just left their homeland. So even though they're a strong army, the Lord wanted them to remain strong in heart. So they took another route. Got to the Red Sea. Pharaoh starts to miss his slaves, miss having slaves around. Maybe he didn't miss them, but he missed having those workers. And he said, what have I done in letting those Israelites go? God hardened his heart once again. And Pharaoh chased after the Israelites up unto the Red Sea with his charioteers, his chariots, with his army. The Israelites saw them abroad and said, "Oh, no, Moses, God, why? Why did you bring us here to die? You could have just left us there in Egypt. We told you this would happen in Egypt, and to leave us alone. Let us die here." These are just the thoughts that they're saying. Why didn't you just, they said, we told you this would happen back in Egypt. So here they are. And Moses comforts them. He said, y'all don't worry. We're going to be okay. The Lord is going to deliver us out of the hands of the Egyptians. Moses then cries out to the Lord, and the Lord's like, why are you talking to me? Get a move on. He tells them then what to do. Raise your staff over the Red Sea. I will part the water so that y'all can cross over on dry ground. And as I have been walking, and I may have had this incorrect about that cloud and, being shielding them from the sun. That's just the way I see it. But, that cloud that was before them, which was the Lord, he moved to the rear of the camp to divide them from the Egyptians. That cloud turned into a pillar of fire, and there was also an angel in the rear. So the Lord stood in between the people of Israel and the Egyptians. They did not come near each other. Then listen to this. The Israelites started to cross over on dry ground because the Red Sea had become walls of water. Okay, once they had come across, the Egyptians decided that they were going to just come on in and chase after them. But remember that cloud, the Lord began to reach and start to drag wheels and flip over horses and, so the Egyptians was woke all of a sudden. They said, oh my God, their God is fighting for them. Let's get out of here. So as they try to go back, the Egyptians are already on the Israelites have already made it to the side. Lord said, Moses, stretch out your staff again. And the waters just rushed over those Egyptians who were chasing after them. Did not the Lord tell Pharaoh to let his people go? He didn't have to get to this point. But he wanted slaves so bad. He wanted somebody to work for him so bad. He wanted to be lazy so bad. He wanted to rule people so bad. He wanted slaves. He coveted them so bad that it cost him his army their lives. Because the Lord was fighting with a strong fist on behalf of those Israelites. Those were his children. Don't mess with the Lord's kids. So let me say something. And that does conclude pretty much and summarize what we just read.